Hi there, David Taylor on Mr Pelargonium, back at long last with another video for the Pelargonium and Geranium Society. I'm doing a bit of filming today. It's the weekend. I just can't do it during the week at the moment. We'll talk about that in a second. So let's just have a look. Well, welcome back everybody. It's great to see you again. We are just having, I think I have mentioned it before, but we are just having a lot of building work done in the bungalow at the moment. Simply impossible to film during the week, so I've not had any opportunities to do any filming during the week when I would normally do them. So I'm having to film this on a weekend. It's Saturday the 17th of May today, so I'm doing a bit of filming, catching up. Mrs Pelargonium has gone out today, so I'm catching up with a bit of filming. So at long last I'll be able to get these out sort of next week, so the week beginning 19th of May or so, after a bit of editing. So it's great to be back again to the tropical paradise of the UK. Now, you may remember this. I mean, I do have to say that the weather, really since the turn of the year, has been really bad. It's been very dull. It's just been so dull. It's just been so dull. It's just been so dull. Yes, it's one of those scenarios where you really must be careful what you wish for. We've now had 2.5 months of virtually unbroken sunshine. It's been crazy weather in the UK, very hot. Well, during the day, 1 or 2 chillier nights, but the weather is incredible in the UK at the moment for anyone that's outside it. We've had the driest spring for like 70 years, the sunniest spring for 70 years. We've hardly had any rain. All of my water butts, I've got 1,000 litres of water butts, and they've been empty now for about a month. I've been having to use tap water. We did have a storm in the week, which lasted about an hour, and that's been it really for the last month. Topped out the water butts a tad. One of the water butts that takes the actual water in, because they filter down to other water butts that they run into, but yeah, barely enough to sort of quarter fill them. Now the greenhouse itself is looking certainly some plants are looking more like I would expect them to look in like July or August. They've been pushed on massively. It's going to certainly be a sacrifice for show plants, because a number of plants are going to be over by the show. I mean, it's been a freaky spring. We're probably unlikely to have another one of these for a long time. Although, again, be careful what you to wish for, so to speak. We'll have a look at my show plants in a minute. We'll have a little look around what's going on. I'll give you a few tips about what you can do in a hot greenhouse. Now, the good thing is we've actually got a little bit of cloud about this morning for the first time in absolutely ages. So I can do a bit of filming. I opened up the glass house earlier, so it's not too hot in here. Currently about 22 degrees, which is fine for filming. I've got the camera in the shade there behind a big standard that's flowering away. So we'll have a look at some bits and pieces, and I'll give you a couple of tips for what you can do in periods of sort of very warm weather. So what I intend to do a film about coloured leaf varieties, which I'm going to film after this one. I'll do them separately, otherwise they go on too long. So this is more or less just a sort of look and see, what's going on in the glass house in all this crazy weather that we're having. And as I said, I'll give you a few tips and notes about sort of what to do in very dry weather, because in a glass house now, it will be getting very warm. You certainly need shading on. I mean, I've had my shading on since I think the end of March, so it's a good job I did, because the weather, the sun has just been banging down. The leaves of 1 or 2 plants have scorched, and I think this is purely down to the fact that it's been such continuously The sun has been belting in so continuously, it's just been non-stop. And obviously the leaves are fairly fresh in the spring. They're not used to perhaps such, constant periods of direct sunshine. So I've had a bit of leaf scorch. That has tended to go off now. I suppose they've just adjusted to the very sunny conditions, but that's something to look out for. There's not a great deal, if you're providing some shade, there's not a great deal more you can do. So you can see here I've just put some plants outside already. I've had a few plants out now for a couple of weeks. Mostly regals and centids, they can handle the slightly cooler nights. You have 1 or 2 cooler nights. The nights are still going down to about sort of 6, 7, 8 degrees. I mean, that's fine really for regals and centids, that sort of thing. Well, and zonals, to be quite honest, they're not going to come to any issues. But I put a load of plants, larger plants outside, purely because I've sort of run out of room inside. And I'm also needing to get my show plants on the floor. So I'll just take the camera off and we'll have a little look round of what's going on. This is the giant standard of Rushmore spotted shrimp. Now the one thing, of course, with the advancement of the spring is that all the blooms are coming through true now. We had the early spring scenario where we get the slightly deformed blooms. Am I still getting 1 or 2? I don't think I am anymore, because obviously it's warmed up massively this spring. But that's not too bad. As I said, this is clearly the side here that had the back on it. That was up against the side of the glass house. But again, I mean, really, that's come on. That is probably 2-3 weeks ahead of where I would normally expect it at this time. I've had that at the show for a couple of years. I think now that's probably sort of past its sort of best for show work, but I do intend to keep it going. It flowers, it's very strong growing, and I want to keep that growing. I mean, there's no reason why that shouldn't last for years. And I'm hopeful that that will sort of do quite well. I've got a fair number of standards that I potted up. Some of the regals are all, even at this early stage now, starting to look a little bit tatty. This one flowered like crazy, but I need to be breaking off some of these dead bloom stems. But I mean, you'll probably notice I've got a fair few gaps on my benches, and this is purely down to the fact that all of my show plants are on the floor at the back, which I'll show you in a moment. I mean, we can look down. We've got sort of Phyllis here, and we've got some coloured leaf varieties here, which I'm going to speak about in another video, in the next video here. There's good old Bolero just beginning to flower. Particularly like that one. We've got, what have we got here? This is Chelsea Gem, I think, and Chelsea Star. Blooms are all coming through normal now. If you get a few odd ones, I mean, you can break them off, but we've got blooms here that are going over in actual fact. I mean, that one's just starting to sort of go over. So we are in a really bizarre scenario. These are the young standard, the solid version of the spotted shrimp. And Steve, if you're watching, I need a name for that. I keep meaning to ask you, but I always keep forgetting. So that needs a name, but it is the solid version of Rushmore spotted shrimp. And they're quite decent, actually. I'm hopeful that I'll be able to get those to Rosemore next year for next year's show. A bit immature for this year. I mean, one of the key things, of course, with all of this very hot weather is that you need to be careful not to overwater, particularly in a glass house. Outside, I mean, it's more or less ideal growing conditions, so just water sort of, fairly constantly if you want to sort of keep them really keeping fleshy. But indoors in a glass house, you need to be a little bit careful how you sort of water, because if you overwater, particularly if they're in a plastic pot, we've got plenty of plastic pots going on, as you can sort of see over the back there. Um, you really do need to be careful because plastic pots can get very hot, and the roots can overwarm, and you can really sort of, almost virtually kill the plant if you overwater. So do be careful. Just give them a little bit in the bottom of the saucer, nothing too much. Just a few millimeters would do. It's better to water constantly, say daily or every other day, with just a little bit in the bottom rather than flood and say, right, I won't need to do that for several days. When it's hot, that can be very costly. So you do really need to be quite careful. Got a lot of standards down the middle here, lots of Regal standards. I think that's Spellbound. That's put on a good show. This is Parisian, very popular variety, quite a different colour. This is one of my own white, well, it's a sort of decorative Regal, got quite a big flower for a decorative to be fair. But yeah, it's grown. That's sort of what's one of my own that's unnamed. Over there, I'm going to zoom into that one. That is a sport of the plant bushfire, which is very dark bloom, very unusual. I sort of liaised with Marge Edwards, who produced Bushfire in Australia on Facebook, and she's certainly never known anything like that. But it's very stable, and all the stems are this sport that I took off of Bushfire last summer. So there we are. That will probably think about getting a cutting of that over to Fibrex for release. So that's one that we can potentially look out for. The SAR, I'll go back down. The SAR, that always makes a pretty decent plant. That's grown out very well as a standard. A standard of a plant called Rushmore Mylavinia, which is one of Steve Pollard's, sort of a nod to his wife, named after that one. So that's just beginning to flower. Got several here again. I mean, that's Stat Burn. That is never normally flowering at this time of year, or only just beginning to flower. That's actually been flowering for several weeks now, and it's it's sort of ready to go. I was thinking about getting it to the show, but again, it's finding room, and it's a complicated situation. When everything is flowering so ahead of when it normally would, it is really an unusual year this year. These are all dwarfs, nearly all of them, I think. Yep, they are. And it's complicated, and to complicate it even further, of course, I'm in a learning curve for the new glasshouse. And we're in a really open, sunny situation here, and it's been probably the worst scenario that I could have had. Because, of course, we've had this exceptionally sunny weather in a situation where I realistically, in this year, could have done with it being a bit cooler. But there we go. I mean, there it is. It's a learning curve, and I'm certainly going to be back to standard stopping. And you can see here, if you look over the back there, that's our Aristo Black Beauty. And that is ready for show now. It's 5 weeks today, I think, to the show. So that'll be gone. That'll be well and truly over. I've got one of my own there, which is Elsie Taylor. That's one of mine. Right, that may be just about okay for the show. Another one of my own, Gosbrook Aurora. It's just starting to flower. Certainly those blooms will be gone. But yeah, certainly commercial varieties. Another one over the back there that actually needs a drink. But purple stripes. But again, these need to be stopped, I reckon, in a normal spring at around 16, 17 weeks. Certainly no more. Now, a couple I'm holding out for show is this Doris Shaw. I've got some early blooms, but the bulk of the blooms are just starting to follow on, and I'm hopeful that I can get that to the show this year. And the one behind it is a Delhi, and I'm also hopeful that that may get to the show. Um, so yeah, they're a bit of a glimpse of some of my show work, but it's been holding stuff for show this year when it is relatively late, 21st of June, the show this year in Bridgewater, Manchester. It is a really difficult year to hold stuff back. Over the back there, I'll show you some others. We got Frank Headley. That's William Laghooth, or however you pronounce that. And I think it's Mrs. Parker behind it. I think that's Mrs. Parker. Got a Carolyn Schmidt as well, and I always get those two muddled up because they do look relatively similar. The blooms on those two are virtually identical anyway. But yeah, they're flowering away. Big standards, more standards over this side. They're growing away quite crazily. The slightly pink one, I get muddled up with them. See if I can see the label, but the label's so far away, I don't think I can. I'll have to clarify that and put it up on the screen. Pink Dolly Varden, again flowering away, that's quite nice. White Chiffon Regal, these are all my big standards growing away. Got Mrs. Mappin, quite like this one, and Sammy Brown, which has got a reverted stem on there. Look, should I take that off? There we go. Lots of youngsters, they're up on the top shelf. They're not doing too badly, all growing away. Got some cuttings of Lady Plymouth that I did quite late over the winter there. You may remember that if you cast your mind back in the videos. And I've got some, these are, I've yet to name that. That's my spotted unique. Now, interesting thing is that I've got two sides to it. I've got a lighter side and a darker side. And here is the main stock plant. That's the darker side. I've got two stems that have a dark bloom and two stems that have a lighter bloom, but they've all got the spots, so that's the important thing. But I actually quite like this lighter version because it shows the spots off more. And interestingly, I obviously took the cuttings from the light side because all the cuttings I've got of it, some of which are over there and some of which are over the top, which I just showed, are all from the light side. So yeah, there we go. But there's going to be two versions of that, and they're pretty stable, to be fair, the ones that I've taken. Right, so there we are. I thought I'd do a little bit of an update video for you, a couple of tips. I am just sort of doing a few bits and pieces, a little bit of bodding on, nothing too scientific. It is basically, certainly in the afternoon, getting far too hot to work in here, so I'm, just netting up and just letting stuff get on with it, really. Keep the watering light, and that's realistically about it. Okay, so I'm going to draw this one to a close. I'm going to film another video now, as long as it's not going to get too hot, and talk about coloured leaf varieties. So I'll see you in the next one.